bit of why we're here today. So many of the organizations that we work with, predominantly 95% of all of them are in that situation where they have vast experience in AWS. Right, they really do. They've known it, they've seen it, they've been working with it for the past, I don't know, 15 years, right? And they come back to us and they say, well, we really, we're hearing about Azure, we like Azure, we know that the dust is starting to settle with cloud providers, and it's really the top three, but it's really the top two. And the three that we see is Azure, we see AWS, and we see GCP, right, the Google Cloud platform. And we're not seeing a lot of competition outside of the Google Cloud platform. In relation to Azure and AWS. So what's also very interesting about it is a lot of people don't know some of the mechanics behind Microsoft Azure and some of the, kind of the reach. And I just want to kind of briefly talk about that really quick. So Microsoft has over 168 data centers around the world, and it comprises of 28 actual data center regions. And to put it in perspective, they have more data centers than AWS and Google combined times two, which is just phenomenal. So, and Microsoft is a very conservative organization, and I think there's, good and bad, with some of the ways that they approach things. But being conservative, they take the approach of, let's watch things happen. Let's see how, this particular technology or product is going to kind of develop, right? And inside of that, they kind of wait and they wait. And that's what they did really with the whole cloud platform. And, about 5 years ago, I remember going into Microsoft Azure myself. I spent before, and this was before Microsoft. So I spent the last 5.5 years at Microsoft. It was really just amazing, and amazing time, learned so much. But I remember going into Azure right before I got hired, because I wanted to kind of figure it out myself. And I remember inside of that, there was basically about 4 things that were available inside of Azure, and basically infrastructure as a service. And I plotted through that, to kind of understand how to deploy virtual machine, but I had no idea like how to actually set it up correctly. And that's what we're going to be doing today, is showing you how to set it up correctly, how to deploy Windows Server Data Center and whatnot. But over the past 5 years, it has blossomed, right? It has just they keep adding and adding and adding to it, which increases the complexity. So now you have 12 basic workloads that are inside of Azure, but underneath those 12 workloads, you have about 168 different types of workloads. And those workloads span across virtual machines, app development, SQL databases, artificial intelligence, with the chat bots, Power BI. It's enormous. And when you click into one, then oh my gosh, then there's so many different things that are available. So it's really expanded significantly, and especially on the AI front. There's 5 pillars of AI that Microsoft goes into, as opposed to AWS and GCP. They're really just focusing on 2. So there's just so much you can do with it. Azure is an open source platform where where Microsoft, I keep saying we, because I used to work there, but where Microsoft opens it up for app developers to create solutions, to create applications inside of these basic either infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, app development, Power BI. So they're just building and building and building. So there's a lot of great applications, ISV, independent software vendor, applications that they provide into the marketplace. And the other thing too is that Azure is really careful with vetting out those ISV solutions. So they go through a rigorous 8-week testing program before they're ever even allowed to get into the marketplace. And then they're also, it's very stringent, like how do we, should we put this in, should we not put that in? So you can rest assured that you're going to be feeling good, about if you want to add a specific, if you want to add like a specific app, that might help do something. The other thing that I also want to mention, and this is what's, a lot of people don't know this, is 51% of all servers are Linux based, and they're not Windows servers, which is, I remember when I heard that about 2 years ago, I was floored. I was like, wait, what? Very interesting, right? So you're kind of thinking that. And the other thing too, what's also one thing to note, okay, and this is something if you're working with AWS and you're running any type of SQL environment inside of AWS, it gets really expensive because you're actually having to buy the server cows, the Windows server cows, right, the SQL cows, and you're going to have to buy the license for your cloud environment, but also buy a license for your test dev on-premise environment. So it becomes actually quite expensive. And what Azure does, it basically allows you to buy that server cal inside of whatever subscription you're doing with Azure, right? So you're getting that free. But what a lot of people don't know is that you get a free download. You can use that same download to do test dev on premise. So it's very interesting. And that kind of goes into this next model or the next idea where a lot of folks are looking at infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. They're kind of thinking, gosh, this is really expensive, right? And the best use scenario or the best case for this is you want to make sure you start thinking of reserved instance. Okay, reserved instance is really, I think that's really the way to go when you're looking at the Azure implementations, and that really comes down to do you need them on all the time? That's just really what it is. Do you need them on all the time? The virtual machine, and especially if you're running SQL applications, you typically run those at night, right? From 11 to 2 or something like that, depending on the size. However, you don't. There really isn't a need to keep those machines on all the time. So there's that option. And then Azure just came out with this new thing called Spot Instance, right? So this is more test dev, and it basically it's like they're basically reselling Azure licensing that's being unused. So you can get it really, really cheap. So it's really cool. So I'm going to show you that kind of stuff today. Today is a hands-on lab. We really like to have this interactive. I have some of my colleagues on to help help the questions along. We're going to be walking you through the steps that are located in the click-through guide that you actually have. So when we get to the click-through guide, just to kind of give you some direction here, we have the overview. This is what we're covering today. Then we have the next, and basically this is where we're starting. Okay, so this is kind of like what we're going to be doing first. And you can follow me, with it, but it'd be good to have this up on a second window, because there are going to be times that you're going to need to just, copy that, right, and then be able to paste that into, some of the fields that we have, especially some of the names that we're going to be doing today. So it's a hands-on lab environment. I'll show you most of the stuff. You won't probably need to reference this, but just always good to have this. As well as when you're playing with it later on this morning, if you want to, you can go ahead and do that.
Welcome to AzureDirect.com, your place to start with an Azure proof of concept that will be the foundation of your foray into the cloud. Here at Azure Direct, we start your cloud journey with a small foundational experience that you can test and develop into your ultimate goal. We start small and introduce you to proof of concepts that will work across different industries. We look forward to taking a measured approach and achieving your goal to evolve and take advantage of the latest technologies available.